Buckle up. It's the Insurance Dudes Podcast.
Season two.
Season 2.
Oh, it's right around the corner. And let me tell you, Mr. Jason, I'm excited.
Yes. I'm excited too, Mr. Craig.
Yeah.
I liked our little conversation we had about hiring. Should we get into another pillar?
Let's do this.
Let me give you a hint of the topic. Choo-choo.
Choo-choo. Trade.
Yes. Yes, train, my friend.
Oh, you've got to trade.
You've got to train to maintain.
Oh, you sure do. Or it's going to
And
rain.
to make it rain.
Or it's going to rain before you make it rain.
That's right. So let's talk about training.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about this. First off, training in general, if it's something that is not taken seriously, is the biggest downfall of any business. Why? Because exponentially, it either pays off or exponentially, it costs you.
Yep.
Right? From day one. So either direction you go, it's either going to go in a really great direction and you're going to keep compounding your result. That's what's going to happen. You're going to keep compounding your results regardless.
Well, the best agencies are going to have a very strong hiring process and a very strong training process. Because what is the most expensive line item of your P&L?
Your employees.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
And so we talked about hiring. What's the first thing you do when you get somebody in your office?
Oh, you've got to onboard them. And it's got to be a good experience. They can't just walk in and everybody's like, what the hell? Oh, shit. You know, you've got to know what you're doing.
Right.
There should be an employee manual. You should hand the manual. You should go through the manual or bring it home, read it. If you have any questions, talk about it in the morning. But you've got to have a process that you go through all of these things and a plan. Like this is the training plan. This is what we're going to do over the next week or however long your training program is. But there has to be something in writing. You've got to write this thing down.
Yeah. So it's almost like this is what we don't do. Where this whole series is basically talking about what we used to not do, and then how do we get to what we do, Mr. Craig? Do, Mr. Craig.
You said do.
So it's working in reverse. So that person that you hired, what does that look like to you in 6 months? Like the perfect person, right? Write down everything that they do and then work backwards.
Yeah.
Well, first write down everything that you want them to do from top importance to least importance, and then divvy up those time. So then you have benchmarks of timelines. Teach them the most important things first. Have a timeline that needs to be done by. That's benchmark number 1. The second set, benchmark number 2. Third set, benchmark number 3. So this is all this has to do with predictable results. We always talk about predictability, predictable results. So doing this creates predictable results. So if you know that timeline, they might miss it, but at least you can recorrect, and you might be a week behind, but at least you have an idea of the benchmarks that you need to hit, or maybe that person's not right for you.
Well, and how much better is that for your team too? If your team is doing the training, but there's nothing down and it just is just a free for all, what a mess, right? It's a mess for them.
What a mess.
They lose faith in the whole thing. They're getting stressed out because they have all the other stuff to do and they don't even know what to do. And you're expecting them to come through. You've got to lay down that process. When building out what we do, I thought to myself, what were the jobs in the past when I was younger, much younger, and which ones do I remember from the day that I walked in the door? And there's one job that I had that was at a bank where the first day, the president of the bank brought me in the office. We sat down. He gave me, what are those fancy pens? Cross. He gave me a cross pen. He said, I want to welcome you to the team. I'm going to take you out to lunch today. It was this whole production, right? And then they had it laid out, the whole training plan. This is what we're going to do. And I remember that, even though it was over 40 years ago, that it was such a good experience, right? Coming on. What really wasn't 40 years ago. That's the geriatrics joke about myself. But no, honestly, it makes a difference. We just hired 2 new people, got a million things going, right now. So not always down at the office. I made it very, very, very important to be there, to introduce myself, welcome them to the team, and not over Zoom. I had to go down there, went to the other office just to meet them because I know that's important, right? I know they're going to remember that. They're going to say, oh, that was pretty cool that the owner came down and was talking to me, right? When they're dealing mainly with somebody else that's training them. And so it's those little things. But again, there's a whole process behind it, right? There's a process that gets executed on, everything gets checked off. So then down the road, if it is working out or it isn't working out, you can go back to that and look at what expectations you set, all of the milestones that you put there. Is it happening? Because now it's not about their attitude, right? Or them, which if there isn't a plan, they're not going to do well because they don't know what to do. You could always talk to the process, right? It's just, hey, remember we set this expectation. It's not happening. What are we going to do to correct that? Or is this going to be one of these situations where we need to part ways?
Yep. And I think a lot of people think like it's so expensive to hire new people. Well, one thing that I like to do right off the bat is figure out what activities can they do that's the most important that can generate money for the agency right away. So let's talk about sales, right? It's no surprise, but we have telemarketers that hit the leads first and they send them over to the agents. But I like to start off our agents doing that, get them in the agency, and from day one, start getting them to do the transfers, learn exactly how to overcome that initial, I don't have time kind of objection. And it's a good indicator on whether or not they'd be a good agent, how they handle that. And if I can train them and from that step on. So let's say that it doesn't work out after a week. Well, they're at least going to get a few transfers a day. So that at least they generated enough business for the agency where it's pretty much a wash.
Yeah.
I didn't spend any money because I got 3 transfers a day out of it, or 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's at worst case scenario. So I like to do that, kind of stack it where they're doing activities that generate money to pay for themselves. Yeah.
Got to stack.
I mean, and it's kind of like looking at it like that. And when you do write it out like that and you write out those benchmarks and milestones, you can create it in such a way that it really doesn't cost the agency that much money with what they're doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's creating the activities that is going to put the agency that much further. It's just being intentional about it rather than.
Got to be intentional.
Yeah.
And lay it out. We have a 90-day probationary period. You have to prove yourself in the first 90 days, and then you get a bump. You go up to the new salary after the 90 days. And it's by design because you know what? We're going to be watching very carefully over these 90 days that you're tracking and you're hitting all of the milestones because it's critical. You got to come out hot because if you let it go too long where they're writing 8,000 a month or 10,000 a month and just it isn't going there and that's okay, then they're going to be okay with that. They don't know any better.
Right.
But if the expectation is by this certain period, you're going to be up to speed just like the rest of these people in here, okay, shit, I better do the activity, right?
Right. And if you lay it out like that and have those metrics that they need to hit, then there's a process. And then all you're doing is managing the process, not the people. I can't stand managing people because it's like, well, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Oh, okay. Well, come on. You got to try harder. We need those sales. That's hard to do. And it's hard to, when you need quantifiable measurements so that you can manage the activity, manage the process, not the people. That makes it a much more enjoyable experience for you and for them because they know exactly what they need to do step by step that they can control those activities that you laid out there. They might not be able to, measure the sales, but then again, hey, if they're following the framework that you laid out there with all the things that they need to do, it's naturally, if they do that, when they get better at it, the sales are going to come in.
Yep. And I like to have them making those dials in the beginning. They're not going to be making that many dials forever, but they need to cut their teeth. And you'll see some people will eject after a week because they're not into it, right? But if somebody can't make 300 or 400 dials in the beginning that are just tougher dials, it's going to be a grind in a month, 2 months when maybe they're only calling quoted, but still they need to make 100 dials, 150 dials in order to be in those upper numbers. And so you're going to get an indicator of that. If they can't come out hot and really be dialing, then there's going to be an issue.
Right.
And it's better to have them eject in a week than it is to keep them on writing 8,000 for the next year. Because look at the opportunity cost of having somebody writing 8K a month or 10K a month versus somebody writing 30. That's a lot of premium. 120,000 in premium versus 360 or 500, right? Our good producers are doing 500 to 600,000 a year. It's a big difference. If you got 4 or 5 people, you're looking at millions in premium. So it's important to look at those metrics, hold them accountable. And again, the process is the activity. You've got to key in on that activity because the activity is what creates the results.
That's it. Consistency, process,
persistency,
laid out, persistency, and don't resistancy.
Yeah, don't resistancy. It's ludicrous consistency. We'll see how the flippity flip.
Count down to 200 or
300. You cut us short, Mr. Jason.
2.
Season 2, 300 episodes.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, Mr. Craig.
That was another awesome episode, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people want to get a little bit more action and learn how to write 100,000 in premium off of even the worst internet leads, where could they go?
They can go to live.teledudes.com.
Ooh, that sounds exciting. Are we going to be there?
Yes. It's a weekly call that we're doing right now it's live, and it will show you the process. The entire process is super awesome.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Sign up right now, live.teledudes.com.
Live.teledudes.com. That's live.teledudes.com.
Hey, Craig, there's a new community that we are starting that I cannot wait to tell everybody about. It is our live texting community where you and I are going to answer people's questions and give them free content, right?
Are you kidding me? We get to talk to them?
Yeah, which is awesome, but they have to opt in. They have to text us at 520-214-2219. That's 520-214-2219.
Nice.
Craig, are you going to respond to these texts?
I'm going to respond to them for sure. Live.
I'm into it too. It's going to be awesome. And it's going to be our new texting community where we're going to get back to everybody that we can and drop some crazy content, free content, and free the calculator that you just came up with. That's right. The calling calculator, sales material. I mean, everything for insurance agents. This is it. It's the best texting community out there for insurance agents.
Well, what the heck is that number again? I can't remember it.
It's 520-214-2219. That's 520-214-2219.
I love it. I'm going to text it right now.
520-214-2219.
All right. I'll see you later, Mr. Jason.
Bye, Mr. Craig.
Wait, do they even listen to this on the radio anymore?
I love it. I love it.
Nice.
All right.